I would advocate for two core changes. One,
Let's
you
hear
just
it.
said, cut off the student loan money. Two, gut the ABA requirements for law school.
Hello and welcome to episode 506 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Nathan Fox. With me is Ben Olson. We are the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. We're going to dive right in, Ben, with this story from the New York Times. Demon listener Sarah sent in this article. The title is "Colleges Know How Much You're Willing to Pay. Here's How." And we have a whole bunch of bullet points from this article. I don't really want to just read these bullet points. Ben, did you have a chance to read this article or at least skim it?
Yeah.
What's your biggest takeaway from this idea that, explain it to the listeners. How do colleges know how much you're willing to pay?
Simply put, they've hired a firm that has an algorithm that compiles a bunch of different pieces of data about anyone who contacts the college or even hasn't contacted the college but is on some list. And then they try to estimate how much you're likely to pay. So for example, if you live in a certain zip code, you almost certainly make more money than someone who might live in a different zip code. And so you're more willing to pay for college than the other person. What I thought was wildly fascinating, and by the way, this article is written by Ron Lieber.
Okay.
I think I'm saying that right. And he's the one who wrote the book, How to Pay for College, or How You're going to Pay for College, or something like that. So he goes into a lot of that in that book. But the thing that struck me the most here was that schools decide how much you're likely to be willing to pay.
Yep.
Based on your zip code or whatever, and a bunch of other factors, including how quickly you open your email from the school.
Wow.
And they decide on a discount for you. They say, okay, here's the most likely starting bid we should offer to this person. It's obviously not going to be the amount of money that they're willing to offer in total, but they're going to offer something to start with. And what they call it depends on your demographic. So if you're more likely to be wealthy, they're going to call it a merit-based scholarship. If you're more likely to be poor, they're going to call it financial aid. So they're doing the exact same thing for both individuals, but they're calling it wildly different things to appeal to whoever they're talking to.
Yeah. These are private equity owned firms. And when you hear them talk about it, they're using terms like financial aid arbitrage.
Mm-hmm.
The optimization process begins with the hoovering up of more data about teenagers and their families than one might think possible. The process starts with demographic, socioeconomic, geographic, academic, curricular, and extracurricular information. Anything and everything you tell a school when requesting information or applying. Notice not just when applying, but also every shred of interaction you have with any of these schools.
Social media as well.
I guess people should just go and read this article. It is, I think it will give you lots of insights. This is now, we're talking about undergrad admissions mostly, but this is exactly the thing we've been yelling about with regard to law school admissions and pricing for basically the entire history of the Thinking LSAT podcast.
Yeah, I do think there's value in going through these bullet points now as I read them. I think we can talk about each one if you're game. I think people need to understand just how entrenched colleges are. And I've got to imagine that to some degree, law schools are doing many of these same things.
Sure. So the first bullet is the average tuition discount among private colleges is now over 56% for first-time full-time students.
Not surprising.
And no different from what law school. Private colleges, do we even care?
No.
I have seen no difference between how public law schools behave and how private law schools behave. The financing is exactly the same. The bullshit about merit-based aid, they're all playing the exact same game, fighting to try to climb the rankings.
Yep.
Second bullet, the driving force behind college pricing is a series of algorithms developed quietly over decades by consulting firms operating just out of sight. The two biggest, EAB and Ruffalo Knoll Levitz, or R&L, are owned by private equity firms.
Okay. Next one, one or both can help a college buy hundreds of thousands of names of teenagers who have taken the ACT or SAT.
So they can just buy this data. That did make me slightly rethink. We always tell applicants that they should check the box yes for the candidate referral service.
Yeah.
I wonder, could we look into the fine print on that? Maybe a listener could help us out, or maybe Josh, you could put something together about the candidate referral service. I would just love to know, what exactly are you giving the schools the rights to when you check that box? Because I've always wanted my students to get a bunch of unsolicited offers from law schools all over the place by checking the box for the candidate referral service.
Totally.
But this type of shit makes me wonder, like, wait a second, how much information are you actually giving to these private equity firms or whoever it is in the background that are doing the consulting for the schools?
Yeah.
And I just hope you're not shooting yourself in the foot by checking that box. I
Totally.
don't think you are. I think our advice has been sound over the years because I've seen how good the outcomes are from people who follow our advice. But I wonder whether that, I would just like to know what you're actually doing when you when you check that box.
Exactly. Well, our goal has always been to help people see their value in the marketplace by seeing how many schools really want them to apply.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. And I'm actually curious about two things. One, what are you agreeing to when you check that checkbox? What information is now becoming available to the schools? And two, how different is that from just signing up for the LSAT? I imagine on some level there's fine print saying you're going to give up certain amount of information just by signing up.
I hope it's not like, though, when you check that candidate referral service, hopefully it's not like, oh yeah, and schools can see my financial aid information, or and schools can see the list of all the other schools I've applied to / all the other schools I've been interested in.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what's in that fine print, right? So we should probably dig into that, and maybe I'll just do it here. Josh, this is an assignment for you for next week or whenever, if you can put it together. Go do some research for us and figure out what the candidate referral service is actually doing.
Yep.
Cool. Listeners, you can help, by the way.
Yeah.
ThinkingLSAT.com if you want to share some intelligence about the candidate referral service fine print.
Okay. You've already read the next bullet point.
Okay.
The next one after that is, once a school has a good-sized target list, the pitches begin. If the targeted individuals show interest, then the consultants offer colleges tools to track teenagers' digital interactions with clients in real time.
That's some Zuckerberg style shit, right? I mean, this is just the algorithm is learning, it's almost like YouTube Shorts learning what stuff, or TikTok, like just based on your interactions. It's like just homing in on exactly the perfect pitches for you. And that can be good because it can be serving you stuff that actually is relevant to your interests. Just, you got to wonder how much you're being manipulated by that.
Yeah. This next one we already talked about, but I think it's worth emphasizing for lower income families. And this is when the school makes an opening bid. For lower income families, it might refer to the discount off the school's list price as need-based aid. Or for a more affluent family, it could call the discount a presidential scholarship, or anything really that it thinks will get in the student's head and sway their decision. I don't think we see law schools offering need-based aid as often.
Not at all, except for Harvard, Stanford, Yale. I mean, as far as I know, it's all just merit-based aid.
Merit-based aid, yeah.
And, I mean, maybe there are some like tiny nominal need-based discounts, but the vast majority of these discounts are in the form of merit-based scholarships, because you're such a strong, qualified applicant. And really all they're doing is chasing LSAT and GPA.
Yep. The biggest problem there, and we've talked about this a lot on the show, but is scammerships, right? The tuition is $60,000 and the school comes to you with a scholarship for $5,000. You don't know how this game is played, and you think that's a big deal, and it's actually a bad deal.
Yeah.
Next one.
Next one says, One of the best ways for a public school to maximize revenue is to attract more students paying out-of-state tuition. The playbook goes something like this. 1, buy a pile of names of students from appropriately affluent zip codes and pitch them relentlessly with a gripping case for going far from home. You can see the author's attitude coming out here in some of their word choices, right? It's not just a case for going far from home. It's a gripping case for going far from home. So, yeah, this is definitely, what's his name again?
Ron Lieber or Lieber?
Ron Lieber. Yeah, Ron Lieber feels strongly about this. 2, upgrade the admissions staff, adding people with corporate sales experience as the College of Charleston did. And that's something that we have certainly seen in law school admissions, where, these aren't lawyers by and large. They're not, there's just as many MBAs or, like
they're not educators.
They're quite slick.
Yeah.
And they are quite friendly and good at talking and really like your best friend. And they're, it's just what's their job? Their job is to get you to apply. Their job is to get you to pay as much as you're willing to pay. It's a sales role, right? Realizing that it's a sales role obviously is also going on in law school. 3, set a high tuition price, creating the perception of value to make prospects feel especially exalted. Offer a fat academic scholarship, but not so much that they aren't still paying more than in-state students. This especially works, it works on international students. Because I think they do a much better job, a much worse job figuring out what schools are actually good in the United States when you're coming from out of the United States.
Yeah.
So I've heard of like people coming from China or wherever, and they want to send their kids to a U.S. school, but they like can't tell the difference in a lot of ways between all the U.S. schools. All the U.S. schools then just say, okay, well, what's Harvard charge? All right, we'll charge like something like that. We'll pretend like we're like them.
Yep.
And then we'll just send out these great, wow, we really want you. Check out this huge scholarship we're giving you because you're such a good applicant. And they just like gas the kids up. Maybe gas the parents up too, right? Last bullet.
Yeah, whatever the pricing strategy, the financial results have been impressive. For out-of-state students in one recent year, the school offered 3 times the discount off the list price per student compared with what South Carolina students received, while still extracting double the net price from those out-of-state students.
There you go. I mean, and almost every law school does pretty much exactly this.
Yeah.
Right? We have some more information down here assembled by Josh. Thank you, Josh. This is from one of the mentioned consulting firms. EAB has a presentation available on their website called, we'll link all this in the show notes, by the way. There's a presentation called Strategic Use of Grant Aid 101.
They're just laying out their roadmap. Okay.
Here it is. Not hiding anything. It discusses up to 200 variables that schools can use when setting an individual admitted student's price, drawing from data on over 350 clients and 1.5 billion student interactions, which is basically just any data point, right? Including how fast did they click the email. And that actually pisses me off now because, so my niece just applied to undergrad. My niece is going to start this fall. And I was trying to stay on top of it. I'm like, okay, we're going to apply broadly.
Yep.
I want you to forward me every email they send you.
Yeah.
So now that means that she has clicked on and opened every email they sent. So now they're probably thinking like she's super into it.
Yeah.
She also then, I didn't keep close enough an eye on it. And she like declared that she was going. She like picked a school and told them she was going to a school.
It's that Kramer scene all over again.
I know. Like, we were so close to doing it the right way. And then at the last minute, we fucked it up. But Oh, well, she ends up going to a public school and it's not like outrageously priced, but God, I really got to think that she could have gotten merit merit-based aid. Although she was applying to exclusively UCs and CSUs, and I'm not
Mm,
sure that the UCs and CSUs do quite the same thing. In law school, we do see all the public nonprofit schools behave the exact same way that the private for-profit schools do in
yeah.
terms of merit-based aid in the law
Mm,
school context.
yeah. Yeah.
Undergrad, at least California state schools. I mean, that's the story I'm telling myself.
At least when I was reading that book by this same author, he was making the point that for schools that were public, sometimes they use the financial aid as a tool because it's easier to make it look more like a rational decision. So the idea is you have two families that have the same amount of income, but one gets a different financial aid package. That doesn't make sense. In theory, they should be getting the same, but because they're getting different, there does suggest this idea that the officers are looking at, oh, okay, how willing are you to go, and
And
then offering a different price.
yeah, and they can massage what they even call it, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes, as we discussed earlier, sometimes they're going to call it need-based grants or
Mm,
whatever. Other
mm-hmm,
times they're going to call it merit-based
mm,
scholarships,
mm-hmm.
and they get to just kind of choose how they want to structure, what do we really call this? What's an economist call this? Well, an economist obviously calls it price discrimination. In this presentation from EAB, this consultancy that the undergrad institutions are using to
Mm-hmm.
figure out their pricing for undergrads. Again, the presentation is called Strategic Use of Grant Aid 101.
101 basics.
And it includes on page 13 this excerpt. You want to read
Okay.
it?
Yeah, it says price discrimination is the key to a high fixed cost business. That's the key. Okay, what about a
That's
good
a term.
product?
Well, yeah, no shit. I mean, obviously, but that is the term that law schools are never going to use. You're never going to hear them say, and even the undergrads, right? The
Mhm.
schools aren't going to ever tell you what they're doing, which
No.
is price discrimination.
Yeah.
But this is the consultancy selling themselves to the schools,
To the schools.
telling the
Yeah.
schools price discrimination is the key to a high fixed cost business.
Okay, and this is a quote from Kevin Carey, who apparently wrote it in the New York Times in May of 2017. But anyways, the quote
Sure.
is college tuition discount rates are increasing because many colleges have spent the last several decades getting better at price discrimination. Like airline seats, spots in traditional residential college classes are finite and expensive. Like airlines, colleges don't want to sell each student slot for the same market price. Instead, they want to find the rich student with her heart set on that college and charge her parents a lot of money, then find the next person on the demand curve and the next. So they set tuition high and start discounting. That's the only way. I mean, you can't charge more to someone if the nominal tuition is low.
Well,
So you
if
you
you
have
did
to
that,
set it at the highest it can possibly be.
right?
Yeah.
If you did that, everybody would be up in arms, right?
Mhm.
But that is still what's happening.
It's exactly the same as what's happening. But if you if you went to someone and said, "I know our nominal tuition is $20,000, but given how wealthy you are, we're going to actually
Yeah.
charge you 25," then there would be lawsuits.
That's why higher education is just such an obvious scam, is because they've been doing this for decades now. And it's just clear they charge everybody a different price,
Yep.
but they have this beautiful way of doing it where they can just, they get the
They can make
benefit.
everyone feel good. Everyone
They
everyone
set
is
their
special.
tuition just outrageously high, right? And
Mhm.
what's our number again? 82% of law students
Yeah.
pay less than full price.
Yep.
80 only 18% of law students in the United States pay full price.
Mhm.
So to try to get the maximum, right? They're going to extract the maximum that they can from these rich families, or hey, abuse the student loan system, right?
Yeah, they don't have to be rich. Anyone who has access to a federal loan and is willing and foolish enough to pay the full tuition
To
is
sign.
going to, is
Yeah.
going to.
And so they set their price just ridiculously, outrageously high, and then go out and, in the name of grants and scholarships and financial aid, they're able to discount it just enough to try to capture as much possible value as they can under the demand curve, which is what EAB, the consultancy, is just, that's how they're selling themselves to the schools. So they're exactly telling the schools, here's what you do. You price discriminate. But yeah, if you did it the other way, everybody would be pissed, right? If it was like, oh, how rich are you? Oh, no, there's a surcharge for that.
Yep.
By the way, you know, I think I've never thought of this before, but airlines is an excellent analogy because airlines have seats on the plane, and it is a fixed asset and it is an expiring asset, right? Like, you need butts in seats all the time. You got to fill those seats so that you can make revenue.
Yep.
Law schools need to fill their seats so that they can make revenue. And this idea that they're going to charge everybody a different price and they're going to charge people based on willingness to pay, just like the airlines. You ever bought a last minute flight across the country, Ben?
I have recently.
You have recently because of medical emergency. All of a sudden you got to go today.
Yep.
Well, how much does that cost versus if you had booked it 8 weeks in advance?
Yeah.
Well, that's how pricing of law school works too. So we are always yelling about applying early, applying basically a year in advance.
Yeah.
Applying a year in advance is a good way to indicate to the schools that you have low willingness to pay, because you're showing them, hey, I don't need to book on your dorky airline. I'm booking my flight months in advance. I have options. I'll continue to have options.
Yeah.
I'm going to have options all the way up until the day that the plane takes off, which is the day that school starts.
Yeah.
Right. And if you apply like for people who are, oh, I'm going to sneak in, Acme Law School, they have a priority deadline of June 30th, 2025 to start law school in fall of 2025. I got plenty of time. I'm going to apply now. Yeah. Okay. But what you're telling them is you're so desperate to start law school right now that you're not going to have that many options, therefore indicating you have a higher willingness to pay. Not a good signal you want to send when you're negotiating the price of law school.
No.
Like, it's bad enough when you're buying an airline ticket that could cost 3 figures or could cost 4 figures. But here you're buying a JD that could cost 0 or it could cost 6 figures.
It's wildly different. It's crazy.
Like the same people who would never book a last minute flight because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
Will absolutely apply to law school at the deadline. Oh,
catastrophic difference and failure. And it's just like, feels okay and normal.
You're
it's
like
one of the
coupon
challenges
shopping at the Walmart.
Yeah.
To try to save yourself 10 cents on Franken beans.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you're just like a lifetime worth of debt that you're going to incur by getting a JD in a foolish way.
I wonder if there's a way to make people feel the exponential difference in cost. Like I fear that part of the problem is that once you get into such big numbers, right? Like you start talking about $60,000 a year or, $150,000 in debt. It's so outside of their everyday experience that you don't feel the gut punch that you do with that 10 cents coupon or 50 cents or whatever,
Maybe. So like, I'm trying to think of like, just my first idea, but the law schools are all in a different geographical place, right? You're considering all these law schools around the country.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, how much would it cost me to fly to JFK because I want to go to Columbia or I want to go to NYU or whatever? How much would it cost me to fly to New York City last minute first class? Okay. Now, how many times that is the Columbia tuition?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
it's like, something that you would never do, which is buy a first class ticket last minute to fly to JFK.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, you're going to do that times 100 if you pay full price to go to NYU.
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe you don't even have to do the times 100. Maybe you bring all the prices into that framework. You realize you're paying $4,000 for that airline ticket, but you could buy this one over here for 120.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. We can't wrap our puny brains around numbers that are that big. Like people just do a terrible job. You can't really figure out what the difference is. $100 bill seems like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And $250,000 is like, you don't realize how many $100 bills that is.
Yeah.
It's an awful lot of $100 bills. Like as a stack of $100 bills that's higher than your house.
Yeah. Hooey.
Should we keep going?
Yeah, let's do it. What's this
From the
next
same
slide?
presentation,
Yeah.
I think it must be.
Okay.
It's the iron triangle of enrollment. Illustrates revenue profile diversity trade-offs.
Whoa.
Subhead, contradictory objectives underscore the importance of explicit prioritization. Why don't you read this?
Interesting. What objectives?
Listen to what they're calling this. Listen to even just the subject of this first sentence.
Enrollment managers.
Enrollment managers. Have you ever gotten an email from a law school? Could you imagine if it was in their signature? Joe Schmo, enrollment manager. No, that's not what they're going to say. They're going to say associate assistant dean of law school excellence.
Yeah. Professorial. Yeah.
The MBA consultant guys are like, let's call it what it is. This is just, yeah. All right. Anyway.
Okay. So enrollment managers often talk about the iron triangle of enrollment management, i.e., in other words, that 3 core enrollment goals are often at odds with one another. Okay. What are the 3 core enrollment goals?
I think it was in the headline: revenue, profile, and diversity. So revenue, how much money you're getting.
Yep.
Profile, what's the ranking of your school.
Yep.
Diversity, do you care if you're just lily white or not?
Yeah.
Let's see what they say. How do they do this iron triangle?
Okay. Iron. Yeah, interesting. The challenge is that many low-income and underrepresented students are clustered in under-resourced high schools. Semicolon. Therefore, recruiting a more diverse student body often involves accepting a slightly lower academic profile or allocating more aid. Okay.
I don't understand how that follows.
What do you mean? If you want to get a more diverse student body, then you have to either lower your academic profile, or offer more aid. What does the
clustering in under-resourced high schools have to? Oh, I guess you're just saying it's not the clustering that's the problem. The problem is they went to a shitty high school. So because they went to a shitty high school, they have shitty SAT, ACT, maybe shitty grades too. It's a bunch of shitty teachers. It's just a shitty school. I don't think I thought it had to do with like they're all in one place, but I don't think the clustering actually has anything to do with it.
I think it does have something to do with it in the sense that you're both lowering your academic profile and needing to offer aid to get them to even come. In other words, if you want to diversify your class, you're going to have to recruit those candidates with both a lower academic profile or accepting a lower academic profile and offering them aid.
We can move on. I just don't understand why clustering has anything to do with it. Like the fact that they went to a shitty school, totally get it. But the fact that they're clustered at the shitty school, I don't know that them all being in one place has anything to do with anything. I just Anyway, let's move on.
Okay. Since recruiting the highest ability students of any admit pool requires allocating more aid, making progress on any one of these goals often involves making sacrifices on the other 2.
They keep saying aid, right?
Yeah, it's just a discount.
And that's a euphemism for discount. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Under the right circumstances, universities might make progress against any 2 or even all 3 of these goals simultaneously, but such a situation is more the exception than the rule.
So trade-offs is what you're saying.
Yep.
Which, no shit. I mean, if you want diversity, then you like you're not making decisions based purely on merit.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not making decisions purely on merit, you're pursuing a different goal. You're not optimizing for merit anymore. You're optimizing now for diversity. Well, it's kind of hard to optimize on both things at once. So there's a trade-off.
Yep.
Like, no shit. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, and revenue also plays into that. It's hard to optimize for that one too,
Mm-hmm.
because the most meritorious students are going to want a discount. And you also might have to offer discounts to the diverse students. Like, especially because if you're picking from a different pool where like the merit standards might be different, still the top of that pool is more meritorious than their rest of their pool. And we have seen that, right, in law school admissions. I mean, maybe things have changed after the Supreme Court decision last year.
Yeah.
But I certainly have seen like Black and Latin students getting into schools, getting great scholarships where it was like, oh, wow, okay. Like doesn't, there used to be at least this diversity bump
Mm-hmm.
where you're going to not only get in, but you're also going to get money
Mm-hmm.
because of that, because of those schools pursuing that one corner of the diversity or the
Iron
triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no surprises here, I don't think. This
Yeah.
is just like what's obviously been happening for forever.
Yep.
I wonder if that triangle still exists, though, in today's climate where schools are like really worried about, Trump administration is going to come in and just shut off their spigot of money if they continue to pursue DEI.
Well, it's interesting. And the point here is that the diversity element of the triangle is that it forces you to compromise on the other two. And of course, they have a huge incentive to try to focus on both the profile and the revenue because profile feeds into revenue.
Sure.
So now they're getting this pressure from the Trump administration to kind of downplay diversity. It may not be that hard for them to do so. I don't know. Who knows what their internal discussions are, but given the pressure of these other two elements of the triangle, they may just say fine.
Yeah. Okay. So next agenda item, I think we can move on because this is a related issue. This is coming from Demon team member Taylor, who you work closely with, Ben.
Yep.
It is an opinion article written by the Dean of Yale Law School, Heather Gerken. This was published in the Boston Globe. The title is Universities Should Abandon Law School Rankings and Embrace Low-Income Students.
Okay. I'm very curious what Heather Gerken has to say on this issue, but I will say telling other schools to abandon the school rankings when you're at the top.
I know.
It seems a little confusing to me. It's very easy to say, right? Don't worry about income if you're making a lot of money.
Totally. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the right analogy for this. I'll have to keep working on it.
I think the income one works, right? Like if you're making a lot of money and you tell other people, look, just don't worry about the rat race.
Follow your dreams. Yeah.
It's like, no, I'd like to work on that rat race because I need income.
Okay, let's hear what Heather Gerken has to say.
Sure. If there were ever a time for leaders in higher education to focus on our core mission, it's now. And that means finally ending an unhealthy obsession with rankings from U.S. News and World Report. At Yale Law School, the school I lead, we ignore this ranking entirely to focus on our mission and the metrics that matter.
Totally. That's like you just won 7 Grammys and you're like, I don't pay attention to the awards.
Yep.
You're like Elton
just
John.
make good
and you're like, no,
music.
I don't pay any attention. He's already won an Oscar, a Grammy, Emmy, and a Tony. And he's just like, yeah, nobody should pay any attention to these awards.
Don't pursue them. That's what
and no matter how much he like thumbs his nose at them, he's going to continue to get those awards anyway.
Yeah.
And he's just like lecturing young artists. You really shouldn't pay any attention to these awards programs.
All right.
Want to continue?
Yeah, she continues. Every other university leader should do the same. Ellipses. So maybe we're leaving some out here. The ranking has led schools to funnel hundreds of millions of dollars of merit-based scholarships into the hands of students with high scores, but no proven financial need, boosting their rankings, but draining crucial support away from students who need it the most. Okay, that's true. Yale is doing it differently. They're doing need-based aid.
Yeah, can't disagree with what she's saying here. And Harvard, Stanford, Yale, is there one more? Columbia have been doing this already for a while. So, they are practicing what they preach. Of course, it's really easy to do that when you're these schools where you're always going to be ranked in the top whatever. It's like there's been just a tiny bit of reshuffling inside. Oh, remember how, trivia question, right? How many law schools are there in the top 14?
Yeah, 17.
17.
Makes total sense.
In perfect sense. In 2025, there's 17 schools in the top 14. How many schools are there in the T6?
Ooh, I'm guessing
I can't remember
9.
if we already did this.
I'm guessing 9. I don't know if 7. Okay.
7 schools in the T6, which I didn't catch this, but one of these schools didn't use, because there used to be, do you remember people talking about the T6? T6 was a thing. It was like T3, T6, T14.
Okay. Yeah.
At T6 was like, oh no, there's a difference.
Yeah.
But now there's 7 schools in the T6. Okay, how much fucking difference is there actually? There has been like slight reshuffling at the top of these rankings. Nonetheless, Stanford number 1, only need-based. Yale number 1, tied, only need-based. Harvard in the newest rankings has fallen all the way down to just T6, tied for 6th among the 7 schools that are in the top 6.
Yeah.
Harvard is now tied for 6th with Duke. Harvard offers only need-based aid. Now, and I guess that's it. I guess it's only those 3 schools that are offering only need-based, no merit-based aid. At least according to what we're showing on the scholarship estimator. By the way, lsatdemon.com/scholarships if you want to play around with this tool.
This message would be more powerful coming from Harvard. Well, even Harvard, though, it's such a name, you just never think that they're going to go out of it. But it's a
multi-billion-dollar endowment, right?
Yeah. But still,
how can Harvard grow broke? It's like impossible.
It's still a little more impressive that Harvard is still doing need-based aid.
Well, as far as we know, right? And I think that's where that's kind of the point I was gonna work myself around to, which is if these schools continue to do this, and if they do continue to fall in the rankings, you could see them decide that they need to change course.
They need to change course because they're losing top talent to other schools who are willing to play the game. Michigan,
how many people?
Yeah.
Well, hey, Chicago ranked number 3 right now. UVA ranked number 4. Penn ranked number 5. And Duke ranked number 6th. If you got into Harvard and you're from a rich family, and you've meanwhile got Chicago, UVA, Penn, and Duke all trying to throw money at you.
And ranked higher than Harvard.
Right. So yeah, this coming from the Yale dean, where Yale is just kind of always ranked in the top 1 or 2 or 3 anyway, probably number 1, always. Yeah, okay. Real easy for you to say that. I do wonder whether Harvard's going to actually continue to follow this, given they've slipped in the rankings.
So I'm just going to lsatdemon.com/rankings.
Yep.
I want to see how long Yale has been number 1.
Great.
It has been number 1 its entire time.
Great.
Since
LSAT Demon
2010.
lsatdemon.com/rankings.
Yep.
We should maybe link those two together. It would be interesting. It just would be great. I don't know where that could go on the estimator, but if there was a link to the rankings page, just to make people aware that both of those tools exist.
Well, we could link from the ranking itself on the estimator.
Yep. I think that'd be cool. And maybe some hover text or something that says, see how this has changed over time.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you want to read this next paragraph from this editorial from Dean Heather Gerken at Yale?
Yep. Roughly 350,000 students are enrolled right now in medical, law, and business schools, but a 2011 study showed that just 2% of students at the top 20 law schools came from the bottom socioeconomic quartile of the population. Okay.
Okay.
Financial data from the American Bar Association showed that law schools pumped $230 million into merit scholarships over a 5-year period while allocating only a tenth of that, $23 million, to students with demonstrated financial need.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, that's the game. Like, that's what's been going on. I agree. If Heather Gherkin has a petition, I would sign it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what we've been yelling about all these years, that we want law schools to stop doing this. Her take on it, her angle on it is ignore the rankings. You know,
Yeah.
at Yale, we ignore this ranking entirely. Just like Elton John doesn't chase Grammys,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
And yet we've been number one forever.
Yeah, it's real easy for us to ignore these rankings when we can. Oh, number one again. Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah. Elton John getting the Grammy. You can have it. I've got 10 of them already on my mantle. Take it. Who needs these? Yeah. No, but that is what happens. That's the game you're playing. It's nice to hear somebody at the top yelling about it. I mean, obviously, Harvard, Stanford, Yale has already thought that this was a bad idea for a while because they have been only giving need-based aid for years. But how much are they going to get undercut by that? Like, is Dean Gherkin gonna convince, Dean Z at Michigan that she should do the same thing?
Yeah, yeah. Well, or is she looking at what's happening to Harvard and saying, ooh, that's because these other folks aren't playing the game that we're playing by doing need-based aid, so I want them to switch to need-based aid.
Sure. She would love it if everybody did what she has done. Because
Yeah.
if everybody does what she has done, then she's basically guaranteed to stay number one in the rankings forever.
Forever.
She's probably going to stay number one in the rankings forever anyway. I don't see anybody walking away from Yale. But it does seem as if maybe some people have started walking away from Harvard a little bit.
You know, the admonition here to ignore the rankings, like you said, I mean, I know we keep joking about it, but it's sort of like saying, leave a pile of money in the middle of the street and don't touch it. That's not going to work. People just have a huge incentive to go after the rankings. So what they really need here is not an admonition to ignore them, but a rule. It needs to become a rule. You cannot do scholarships. End of story. Can't
That's
do
what we've been saying.
Yeah.
That's what we've been saying for years.
And it's the only way to actually fix it. You have to make it illegal or there's some sort of consequence.
That's what we've been saying forever. And it does seem like, it's so weird to be siding with the Trump administration on something. But when I see them, I mean, there were headlines just today where they were yelling about, and we're going to continue to report on this issue. We don't have all of the most recent stuff because it's just kind of coming over and over and over. Like every day I'm seeing, they're obviously like attacking Harvard in every different possible angle. But just today I was seeing a thing about they want to cut off student loan money to schools that have high default rates.
Seems reasonable.
And it's like, yeah, totally. Because they should be delivering value for the money, right? Well, one of the problems, I mean, the way this relates to the scholarship thing is they charge fake prices to people who are stupid enough to pay it.
Yeah.
And it's especially devastating if you pay for your education and someone else's education, someone else who's there on merit-based aid, and they pay zero, you pay twice what the degree is maybe actually worth, then they have better outcomes than you do. You end up defaulting on your loans. I mean, that's going to happen a hell of a lot less if you at least charge everybody the same damn price.
Yep.
And because we know that they are so addicted to that spigot of student loan money, it's like that does seem like the place where the government could step in here, because I agree with you. The schools aren't going to just like do this by accord.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, you're right, Heather Gherkin.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the lead on this issue. Yeah.
I'm Wash U in St. Louis. I've always given scholarships. I just climbed my way into the top 14 for the first time ever.
They're
by
laughing.
Giving merit-based scholarships.
Dude, they're laughing as they read this at their weekly meeting. That's my guess. They're like, yeah, okay.
They've got a picture of Heather Durkett on a dartboard, and they're just because, like, really, I mean, okay, yeah, right. Like, they're gonna listen to you. Sure. It's working.
That's their strategy. They're paying
Students
money to
pay
get
attention
advice.
to these rankings.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's like the only. So, right, it's either all the law schools, and you've got the tragedy of the commons here, right? Every law school has such a high incentive to defect, even if they did like try to get their heads together and make a pact. Okay, we're not going to give this merit-based aid anymore. Everybody play fair. But the first school that defects shoots up the rankings. So yeah, they're not going to do this by accord. They need to be forced into it. And it does seem like, and this is exactly what we've been saying again for years and years, U.S. Department of Education has the ability to just shut off the student loans. And it seems wildly unfair that you're going to have everybody have access to this student loan program, but you're going to charge some people zero or even pay them to come to your school while charging other people, you know, the 18% who actually pay full price. You're going to charge them that. You're going to charge them $60,000 a year or $80,000 a year while other people pay zero.
Yeah.
While also accessing federal student loan money.
I would advocate for two core changes. One,
Let's
you just said, cut off the student loan money. Two, gut the ABA requirements for law school. Because there's no innovation. So if you cut off all the federal funding and now all of a sudden schools can't charge nearly as much, of course, in their current state, a lot of them are going to crumble and go away. And there's no problem with that. But what's really problematic here is that the free market has no way to innovate and come up with much better ways to educate and prepare students to become lawyers. They have to follow this old, rigid, fucking expensive path, which requires law schools to have a certain percentage of full-time faculty. That's necessary for the future of your law students? Get out of here. It's crazy. It's just protectionism.
Yes, it's a guild, right? The American Bar Association, it's just a guild. They claim that they're expanding access to the halls of justice and fairness and equity and blah, blah, blah. What they're really doing is they're making it very expensive to become a lawyer. They're just a tax on becoming a lawyer. And like in theory, should they have a good education? Yeah, okay, fine. In theory, should they take an exam before they can practice law? Yeah, sure, okay, fine. I mean, that all sounds great. But then in practice, what's really happening? You're wildly inflating the cost in terms of dollars and time. And then, like you say, Ben, the actual education that happens is fucking zero. I don't think Nikki Black would mind. I was texting her yesterday asking her, hey, you ever think about taking on an apprentice? And, you know, like they could skip law school, work under you for 4 years, and then take the bar. And she said, sounds like a good model, and I wouldn't be opposed. I prefer to hire with no experience always. So associates are fresh from law school and don't know anything anyway. So it's like what she's saying is she likes it that people from law, she likes it that they're like a blank slate coming out of law school because they haven't actually learned how to do anything, learned how to do anything wrong.
Yep.
Well, what you're saying is, why not just train them yourself? Like and every firm operates this way too, right? Like they know that a first year associate can't do anything of value. They know that it's going to be like a ramp up before they can actually get productive value out of this person.
Yeah.
She said, I for sure would have preferred that, which is real training on real work. She says, this is attorney Nikki Black saying, I for sure would have preferred that to 3 years of boring law school.
Yeah.
She's just, admitting, I mean, just, not like she has any secrets, but it's like, no, it's a big fucking waste of time. And people who actually practice law know this. But the American Bar Association has all the incentives in the world to maintain their gatekeeping role.
Yeah.
Also because they've been co-opted by, the schools.
The schools, yeah. They come in and they say, oh, it's very, very important that if you want to be an ABA accredited law school, you have to maintain a certain amount of square footage or building space or
library. How many volumes are how many volumes are in your library?
Yeah. Oh, you don't have enough. You're not teaching your students properly, and they will not succeed in the world. Oh, by the way, students never actually look at those books.
Never, not once. I had to look at those books. Yeah, my first year of law school. I mean, this was way back in 2008, I guess. But my legal writing and research class, we actually had to use the fucking books in the library.
Mm-hmm. And the little pamphlet that they put in the back of the book, it was like, oh, the book's been updated. Remember that?
Yeah.
I don't remember what they were called, but yeah.
And then it's like immediate, like no lawyer in the world does that. It's like, oh, actually, you're going to use LexisNexis and Westlaw, but this is a critical part of your legal education. I mean, you have to learn how to do this work.
Yeah.
It's like a fucking line at the photocopier. Print out, cut down 1 million acres of virgin redwood forest so that we could just print these, copy these
redwood. Can't just be human planted. No, this is virgin. Okay.
Old growth. No, you have to get the high quality paper for these important legal documents.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, hey, you go, Heather Gherkin. I hope you succeed in this endeavor. But without like the hammer coming down, right?
Nothing's happening. Yep.
It's just never happening unless they actually shut off the funds. But I mean, it seems pretty clear to me. You don't get to access federal funding for students at your school if you price discriminate. I think that's a winning argument.
Yeah.
I really think that like that.
Well, and
really?
It also actually, okay, so it sounds like an argument coming from the Trump administration, but you could easily see how it plays right into a liberal goal of trying to increase fairness and access.
If you give a fuck about fairness at all,
Yeah.
it seems just. I mean,
Yeah.
it just, really, like, this is money it's like we're financing this by the federal government. So that's everybody. That's all of us. If you want access to those funds, you shouldn't be able to charge students different prices.
Especially more to generally brown students.
Poorer, browner students pay more under the current system. So we're going to stop that.
Yep.
We're going to do what Heather Gherkin says, and we're just going to abandon the school rankings. We're going to embrace low income students. We're going to charge everybody the same price, or even give need-based aid.
Well, no, it's funny.
Although that's price discrimination too.
I wouldn't say need-based aid, because people aren't going to do it actually based on need. What you need is to actually totally separate the admissions committee from the need-based aid committee. They cannot have any connection to each other, right? You have to make your decisions on who you accept, and then the financial aid committee needs to make a decision in some sort of vacuum. I don't know if it's possible, but
I feel like the solution is no aid, period. Like
you just have a flat rate and you just let the market.
Loans are fine. No grants and scholarships. Outside scholarships, fine. However, people go get the funding, fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no grants based on income, because that is price discrimination. You're charging people a different price based on their willingness to pay.
Yep.
That's the definition of price discrimination.
Yep.
So whether you call it need-based aid or call it merit-based aid, you're still charging everybody a different price.
Oh, and
Again, I want to just clarify this is my plank in my platform.
Okay. Yeah. Nathan 2028.
Oh, fuck yeah. Can't wait. Yeah, right. If you want access to these student loan funds, you have to have a tuition that's posted on your website, and that's what everybody actually pays. Pretty simple, right?
Pretty simple. Yeah, it would bring it down real fast, because no one can afford $60,000 a year.
And it would also, Harvard would be able to charge a higher price.
They would. And I think you still have the rankings. I see value in rankings. People necessarily are going to want higher performing schools.
Yeah, but the schools wouldn't then be able to poach students by charging them zero, by soaking the student loan program and just totally abusing the poorer, browner kids that they're admitting because they give the need-based aid to the richer,
they would figure out
kids.
A way, though. They figure out a way. They'd be like, oh, we have on-campus housing. Have you heard about it?
Yeah. There's of course. Well, wait till, and apparently we kicked it down the road to next week.
Yeah.
But did you see the shit about I couldn't believe it when I saw the article in the Wall Street Journal about the tax breaks for professors?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Holy
talking about.
shit.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh my God. All right. Well, that's next week on Thinking LSAT. Tune in to episode 507 because we're going to go into this, these crazy tax breaks that it's just carve outs that have been written in for universities to give tax-free tuition and housing, and not just tuition at the school, but like your professor has 8 kids in the Montessori school.
Yeah, it goes all the way down. It doesn't matter how old they are. They're not in college. They're in 5th grade, but they're getting private education for free.
Tax-free. Well, yeah, it's a tax-free benefit from the school. So the school, which soaks up student loan funds, hands that money to the professor in terms of housing in Palo Alto, for example.
Yeah.
And tuition at all the private schools in Palo Alto for the kids. Yeah. 8 kids in the professor's family. And they don't get taxed on any of that income. Anyway, that's next week.
It's crazy.
Thinking LSAT.
Yeah. Okay, so what do we got coming up here? Monday, May 19th, 8 p.m.
Oh, it's going to be fun. Parents' Night, Volume 3. We've done this twice before. We want you to bring your folks, or maybe you're a parent yourself. But if you've got parents who are at all interested in this law school pricing game, please come to Parents' Night. Yeah, again, May 19th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. You can register for free at lsatdemon.com/free. Ben and I will both be there.
Cool.
May 21st, we're hosting a panel titled Applied This Cycle. It's a panel of 3 Demon team members who went through the application process this cycle. They're going to share their experiences and advice from their application process. Again, that's May 21st. That's for Demon Live subscribers only. Sorry, that's a paid event. But the event on May 19th is free, and we hope you'll bring your parents. And that's me and Ben yelling at them about law school pricing. If you've got folks who are, for example, pushing you to apply right now with your mediocre LSAT, we need to talk at your parents.
Yep.
If you ever wanted your parents to be interrupted and yelled at, bring them to Parents' Night. I will use the mute button. I've been known to do it. And in Zoom, I can mute anybody I want. So if your parents get out of line, they're going to feel the wrath. All right. Next item. Ben, you put this on the agenda. This is a follow-up to our interview with Rachel Cohen last week. This is an update to Big Law versus Trump, coming from npr.org. What's going on?
Yeah, so Perkins Coie was sued, Perkins was targeted by the Trump administration with an executive order from Trump asking the firm to do specific things because Trump didn't like the clients Perkins had represented in the past. Perkins sued, and when we interviewed Rachel Cohen, the outcome of that case hadn't been decided. But as of Friday, it'll be a week now once this goes live, but this is an update from that court case. It says a federal judge on Friday struck down President Trump's executive order targeting the prominent law firm of Perkins. She kept calling
I would say Coie, but
Coie. Yeah, I thought that's what it was. Anyways, finding it unconstitutional and declaring it an attack on the foundational principles of the American legal system. The ruling from U.S. District Judge Beryl Howell is the first to permanently block an executive order issued by Trump punishing a law firm for representing clients or causes that he dislikes. Okay, that's all.
Interesting. We'll link to that. It's a story from NPR. It's got a hilarious picture at the top of Trump signing executive orders in the Oval Office of the White House. The reason why it's hilarious is because it's got the map behind him with the Gulf of America prominently on it. They've got it cropped. The map is cropped so that Mexico is doesn't even appear in the picture. And it's just Gulf of America. You see Texas and Louisiana and Florida.
Wait, why are the states, I see it now, why are the states colored slightly differently? Like Florida, Texas.
Who fucking
are these
even knows?
His favorite states?
Probably
Anyways.
like how red they are. Yeah. Look, like the darkest one is Mississippi and Louisiana. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's that. Next item on the agenda.
Okay, this is the personal statement Gong show. This is where we start reading a personal statement that one of you have submitted.
Yep.
And as soon as we can't read any further, we stop and we tally up the number of lines that we got through. The longer you can get us to read, the better. The shortest we've read a personal statement is 0.5 lines. We just could not get past the very first sentence.
Yeah.
The longest we've read is 10 lines. That was from Greta, and I think that was actually last week. So let's see if we can beat the record this week. Today we have a personal statement from Gabriella.
Gabriella says, over the thousands of hours I have spent providing legal education to criminal defendants with severe and persistent psychotic disorders and cognitive deficits, I have fostered a deep desire for a legal career of my own.
Okay. The phrase legal education rubbed me the wrong way because it suggests that you're like an expert. I'm sure you are providing good advice to them, but I might rephrase that. This sentence is also super long.
Yeah, I mean, I was just doing a word count on it here. And, by the way, Google Docs, tools, word count. That's 36 words in the first sentence. And, honestly, it's not a good sentence.
Mm-hmm.
You just heard me read out loud. By the way, I like professionally read out loud for a living, right? I mean, I'm like, I read LSAT shit for 3-hour stretches.
Yeah.
Every week, and I do the Thinking LSAT podcast every week, and I'm a good reader. But
Yep.
let me give this to you one more time. Take a deep breath.
Okay.
Over the thousands of hours I have spent providing legal education to criminal defendants with severe and persistent psychotic disorders and cognitive deficits, comma, I have fostered a deep desire for a legal career of my own. I learned it as 35 words, hard limit per sentence. But I think most students, most applicants would be far better served if they stuck to 30 words or even 25 words per sentence.
Or
as a
shorter.
hard limit.
Yeah. That's the max.
And yes, and there's no fucking way you read that out loud and thought it was good.
I mean, I wouldn't be totally shocked if she did read it out loud and think it was good. A lot of people fall in love with their own writing.
But when you like can't make it through the sentence without taking a breath, it's not a good fucking sentence.
Yeah. No, I agree. And look, there's so many easy wins here. Gabriella, you say severe and persistent psychotic. Yeah. You don't need to we don't need the exact precise description of their issues. Just say legal education to criminal defendants with severe cognitive challenges or disorders. Well, okay, I get it. They're mentally challenged. Yeah.
Right. I would encourage people to do a find, Control F.
Yep.
For the word and.
Mm-hmm.
Does it really have to be severe and persistent? And then in the very next phrase, psychotic disorders and cognitive deficits.
Yeah. Yep.
Pick one. Why can't these be severe cognitive deficits? Why can't it be persistent psychotic disorders? Nope. Instead, it's because it's so important that we get all the nuance in there. It has to be severe and persistent psychotic disorders and cognitive deficits. And then it's just like, the fuck, I'm overwhelmed. I'm choking on your writing.
Exactly. And I'm not even sure if you want to give the reader this much detail.
No, it's not about you, and it's not good.
You're
it's
like,
not
wow,
positive.
Who are you even talking to? Like a severe and persistent psychotic disorder. Wow. Okay.
Well, okay. By the way, you've only read one sentence. Who is Gabriella?
She is a legal assistant, a volunteer. I can't tell exactly, but she does have legal experience, so that's a win for her.
Maybe. I mean, she has provided legal education to criminal defendants. But this is an application to law school.
Yep.
What's her actual role? What does she actually do?
I don't know.
Okay. I honestly would probably hit the gong because of the 36 words in the first sentence, but I'm willing to keep going here. I want to find out more about
I
what's
am
going on here with
intrigued
Gabriella.
because, okay, she is doing
At
something
least she's talking
legal
about
adjacent, right? And this is
legal experience. Yes,
present.
I
It's
agree.
not when she was in high school. And
No, I don't think she's a child.
yeah.
I definitely don't think she's a child because it seems like she's doing actual work in the real world. I just think, that's a bad sentence. It's
Bad sentence. Your first sentence. It's your most important sentence.
You're not putting a good first impression here. You're supposed to put your best foot forward, and that's just not a good sentence. Like, what am I here to learn about? I'm here to learn about you, but I'm also here to learn about your writing. I'm here to learn about how good of an advocate you are, and that's a bad sentence.
Agreed.
Okay.
Also, by the way, if anyone out there is debating this, or like, is it the first sentence is most important, or is it the last sentence is most important? It's the first sentence.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, 100%. Like, I'm going to read the first sentence of your personal statement 100% of the time.
Yep.
I am not going to read the last sentence of your personal statement 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, by the way, the subject of the sentence is I, but it comes after a lengthy preamble and a comma. Then the verb is fostered.
Yeah.
What have you fostered? I have fostered a deep desire for a legal career of my own. Okay. I want to
You're
know.
applying to law school. We already know this. This isn't new information.
Yeah.
Just show yourself kicking ass as a whatever you're an assistant or to criminal defendants.
Totally. Gabriella continues, I have always cemented myself at the intersection of psychology and the law, space, earning my degrees in psychology and criminology, graduating top of my class with my master's in forensic psychology, and working with the courts in a myriad of roles.
Gabriella, you talk your sentences are way too long. When you said you cemented yourself at the intersection of psychology and the law, I was really itching to just hit the gong.
Yeah, because you're just like, you're just bragging so much. And people misunderstand, right? We want you to put your best foot forward, but we want you to do that with facts, not conclusions.
Yeah.
And this, I have always cemented myself. What the fuck are you talking about? That's a metaphor.
Too artsy. Yeah. It's
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What have you actually done? And then when you go with like degrees in psychology and criminology, graduating at the top of my class, master's in forensic psychology, that's all on your resume. That's all on your transcripts.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You're wasting my fucking time now.
And also a myriad of roles. Okay. What roles?
Like, fucking give me one. I mean, I just wish that people would take your most impressive, most relevant experience and then bring that to life in your personal statement. It's not that hard, y'all, but pick something and then make it come to life. Breathe life into your resume, breathe life into your transcripts by telling me
specific details. Yeah.
Specific details, facts, not conclusions.
Yep. Look at this next sentence. You're going to
No, the gong is about to be rung. One more sentence.
In my mind, it's already wrong.
Yeah. I think we're not going to give her credit for this number of lines. I think the gong was either the first sentence or the second sentence.
Yep.
But we continue here. While I am passionate about helping individuals with mental illness navigate the legal system, it has become clear my skills and passions are better aligned with shaping the systems that impact those individuals rather than providing clinical treatment.
It's just way, way, way too grandiose. You haven't even been to law school and you're talking about shaping the fabric of our legal system.
Scrolling down, there's typos. I mean, I see a red squiggly under client apostrophe S where
I see two spaces after a period.
That was supposed to be clients. And she just put apostrophe S.
Yeah.
Not good. The thing is, I bet if you submit this to, she specifically names, by the way, a law school at the end of the first paragraph.
Yep.
This looks like somebody who, like, they're going to fucking love this because they know that they can charge you whatever they want. Imagine, we just went on and on and on about price discrimination.
Yep.
Imagine how this school, which I might as well name the school, it's Colorado University Boulder. Imagine how CU Boulder feels when they see this personal statement. Oh, she's a Colorado native. She's long been aware of the respected reputation of the law program at Colorado University Boulder. She's probably only applying to my school.
Yep.
This does not look like, it looks like somebody who probably will end up going and being successful in some kind of a legal capacity, but it also looks like a pretty naive applicant who we could just name our price.
Yeah. What's wild here too is that Gabriella has things that she can talk about that could work really well in a personal statement, right? Sometimes people just don't know what to talk about. You have things to talk about. You just need to tone it down and focus on facts.
Oh my God. The second to the last paragraph and the last paragraph are all about CU Boulder law. Just kissing ass to the school.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're selling sand to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to be sold on themselves.
You're just raising your price. Yep.
Yeah, you're just saying, hey, I'm only applying to your law. Like I literally can't use this essay for any other school. So unless I did this same amount of ass kissing to every school I applied to, I'm probably only applying to your school. It's like the last thing you would want to tell somebody if you were negotiating with them.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't realize that they are negotiating.
Yeah.
Law school tuition is negotiable. And I don't mean like actual dickering over the final price. I mean, put yourself in a good position, show them that you have low willingness to pay.
Yep.
This makes it look like you're just going to feel blessed to get into their school.
Yep.
And they're going to just like, what incentive do they have to offer you a scholarship? None. That is not a new record holder. The gong there was somewhere between the first and second sentence.
I would say
Thank you
3
for
lines.
playing, Gabriella.
Yep. 3 lines. Thank you.
If you want to submit for Personal Statement Gong Show, you can find us at thinkinglsat.com.
Okay, tips from a departing demon. This one's coming from Sam. Do you want to read it?
Sure. So Sam, on his way out the door, said, "Don't expect to see results if you aren't listening to the advice given. I wasted months of studying because I thought that I knew better than the people who teach the LSAT for a living. Everything taught through the demon applies to each individual taking the LSAT. The sooner you learn that, the sooner you will see results. Slow down, read carefully, don't look at the timer, don't focus on finishing the section. Once I started actually doing this and stopped making excuses each time I didn't, I took my score from a 154 to a 168. So this is somebody comfortably in the high 160s telling you that the way he got there was by ignoring the clock, not trying to finish, focusing on actually understanding what he's reading. By the way, if he decided to keep going, that's the foundation for how you reach the 170s.
100%. I wonder if that 154 is a cold diagnostic.
If it is, then seems like there's probably still some upside.
Yeah.
With Sam, right?
Sam,
I mean, with a 150 something diagnostic, I got 2 separate emails this week from people saying, "Hey, I'm happy to be here. I took a class from unnamed expensive LSAT provider." Someone else said, "I've been working with a tutor and they've really helped me a lot. I went from a diagnostic of 154 to 161 over 4 months."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, you took a whole ass prep course, or you've been working with a very expensive, presumably one-on-one private tutor. I mean, we do offer private tutoring, but it's by far the most expensive way to prep for the LSAT.
Mm-hmm.
But you've been investing 4 months of your time and God knows how many hundreds or thousands of dollars, and you've only improved by 5, 6, 7 points.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people think that they've been helped because they've learned a bunch of time management strategies, nomenclature, diagram, right? And they went up a few points, but that few points, I don't think it's because of the shit you've learned. It's because you've just been practicing the LSAT.
Yeah.
And when you come to LSAT Demon, the way we get 15 or 20 or 25 point improvements out of people is by telling you that you can basically forget all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Stop trying to finish and instead just force yourself to understand what you're reading. You need to focus on solving these questions. And that's essentially what Sam is saying here is like, stop racing the clock, stop looking at the timer, stop trying to finish the section, and instead just get paid for the work you do. The way you get paid for the work you do is by doing good work. And the way you do that on the LSAT is by actually understanding what it says. It's pretty simple. The LSAT is easy.
Easy. Yeah.
We wrote a book about it. Go to Amazon.com. $6.27. The LSAT is easy on Amazon.
You still have that original copy. You need to get like an official copy.
The one that doesn't say not for resale across the front of it?
Yeah, exactly.
Why? What am I going to do with that? I mean, just for
you can hold it up and
purposes.
it won't like block the title. Yeah.
Yeah. We wrote that book though, because like that's our true belief that the LSAT is actually easy. And I know you don't hear that from a lot of other LSAT prep dudes, but you know, there's one right answer and 4 wrong answers. And if you just understand what it says and you understand what they're asking you about what it says, then there's really only one answer that answers the question. The other answers are wrong. And you just don't have to do all the questions to reach even the 170s. You do not have to do every question, but you do have to get them right. Next item on the agenda is from Justin. It's about index calculations.
Hi, Ben and Nathan. I hope all is well. I'm reaching out about a recurring theme in recent episodes of Demon Daily and Thinking LSAT, index calculations. From what I can gather, it appears as if the final index value treats each difference in LSAT and UGPA as an absolute rather than relative difference. That is, the index value difference between a 3.7 to 3.8 is the same as a 4.1 to 4.2, controlling for the LSAT score. Are you on board with this so far?
I think so. I mean, I think that what Justin is trying to say is that there is actually a bigger relative difference between 3.7 and 3.8 than there is from a 4.1 to a 4.2.
Mm-hmm.
But the index calculation seems to wipe that away by treating the variables as linear, I guess.
That is true. I mean, the index formulas are linear.
Okay.
Interesting. This facially runs contrary to the conventional wisdom of diminishing returns when one is far above school medians. As someone with HYS dreams, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, a 169 on record and a 4.21 LSAC GPA, does my well above median LSAC GPA mean that schools would view me similar to, say, a 4.0 173 applicant? Of course, I will be retaking in June, August, and September if needed because I underperformed on the February test relative to my practice tests, most of which were low to mid 170s. I will be applying early and broadly and will not accept any subpar offers. Thank you for your time and the demon, Justin. I think Justin is right. I think that there is diminishing returns the more you go above the median, and especially the more you go above the 75th percentile.
But I think Justin is saying the opposite.
Oh, you mean by asking if they would view him similar as a 4.0 and a 173?
I think he's basically saying that there aren't. His idea is, you know, that 4.21, that's the thing he's saying. Am I actually going to get value out of that 4.21?
Exactly.
Because 4.21 is so far above the medians, even at Harvard, Stanford, Yale. Do I actually get value for that? And because of the index formula, I think you do.
Well, this is the very thing that we've struggled with the estimator.
Right.
The estimator is based on the number you would get for the index formula for each school. And so that's linear. And so what happens is if you have a radically high LSAT score, that shows you getting scholarships for schools that have LSAT scores way below that. And that kind of doesn't make sense. So what we implemented was a soft regression. So what happens is as your LSAT score or your GPA goes above the 75th percentile, we slowly start to cap that off.
You got to remember that the index calculation is just like their first sorting.
Yep.
It's not like they're just making a decision based on the index.
Yep.
So sure, if you've got a real high LSAT, it might boost your index number a lot. But then they're going to look, especially at schools like Harvard, Stanford, Yale, they're actually going to do holistic admissions. And even at schools that aren't Harvard, Stanford, Yale, they're still going to look at what your GPA is and what your LSAT is, not just look at the index. They're going to look at those other numbers. And if you're slightly above on both, they're going to prefer that to somebody who's way above on one and below on the other. So I think it's right that we have like that soft cap there where you don't get a crazy amount of value because, you know, I got to think that now I should also point out here that 169 is low for these schools and a 4.0 173 is not really going to impress these schools.
Yeah.
Because 4.0 173, that 173 is actually below the median at Yale. But if you were talking about some other school in the top 6 or whatever, I think that they would prefer a 4.0 173 to a 4.21 169.
Yep.
Because 4.0 173 might be slightly above the median on both. Whereas the 169 is going to be below their LSAT median at those schools. Anything more you want to say to Justin? I mean, I just want to say, obviously, Justin, good job planning on taking June, August, and September because that 169 is what's holding you back right now from these schools.
Also, Justin, I wanted to say you've tapped into an issue that's not easy to resolve, but it shows you're, aware of kind of what's going on here. A lot of people don't even think about this stuff.
Yeah, but stop masturbating. You need to improve your LSAT is what you need to do, right? Like we can't like really project what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We're always looking at last year's data and we're always just kind of trying to extrapolate. You want the highest LSAT and the highest GPA you can get. Your GPA is already great. You need to work on your LSAT, especially for these schools.
Totally.
Last item on the agenda is word of the week. Ben, if I just asked you what blithely means, what would you say?
It's definitely negative. To me, it almost seems like dismissively or without respect, something like that. That's my guess.
I think it means kind of like smugly.
Smugly, yeah.
And so as an example, I think that what's this EAB, the consultancy that we talked about at the top of the show?
Yeah.
Well, they blithely put in their marketing material to schools this headline, price discrimination is the key to a high fixed cost business.
Yeah.
I mean, they're blithe because they're kind of slightly cluelessly, but slightly smugly, just kind of like, what? That's our advice.
Yeah.
You should do price discrimination.
Yep.
And they're blithe about it. The law schools themselves would never be so blithe as to use that phrase, price discrimination.
Yeah, we're price discriminating. Would you like to? Who's next?
So this word of the week came from Judge Howell's decision discussed earlier in the agenda. And the quote from page 33 of that decision said, "The government blithely describes the statements set out in section 1 of EO 14230 as, quote, not seriously contested and, quote, matters of public record. This description is inaccurate." So why did Judge Howell choose that adverb blithely? The government didn't just describe the statements that way. The government blithely described the statements that way.
It was smug or reckless or dismissive.
Totally. Cambridge Dictionary. Blithely, an adverb, happily and without feeling or showing any worry, especially when there is a reason to be worried. She blithely agreed to the contract without realizing what its consequences would be. Or a blithely optimistic 75% of students believed that they would one day become millionaires. Yeah, the Judge Howell was basically mad at the government there.
Yep.
Saying, hey, you have misrepresented the truth in your court filing. and eventually ruled against the government.
Yep.
Be LSAT famous. Please ask questions or share news with us on our website, thinkinglsat.com, or on the socials at LSATdemon. If you have questions about the LSAT Demon, email help@lsatdemon.com. Check out our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 506 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.